What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the second album by rap group Migos. Basically, this product is called Culture, and it came out in the winter of 2017. So this is a pretty trendy album to recent times, I'd have to say in particular. This is one of those ones that helps solidify like words like culture and for the culture, some of those type phrases just within the pitch behind it. This is very like a dominant factor about the late 2010s. It was something that helped like commercialize more like Instagram life and pitches like that. Like I want to say just things of that nature, Instagram, Twitter, some of those type of things were more popular like in the early 2010s, late 2000s, pitches like that. But this is more things like this actually IG stores and some of that type tones were starting to become more commercialized and just kind of like another kind of faceted kind of conduit of like internet rap as far as those pitches kind of happen, kind of moving away from more of like the more traditional SoundCloud and pitches like that type sense that were kind of going on. But just the concept behind it is just pretty affluent within it. I definitely feel like this had a lot of trends about it. Just the concept as this was like an advancement of like particular sound between Migos blossoming in 2017 and Two Chains kind of had like a second wind around this time with Pretty Girls Love Trap Music. Lil Baby was coming up around this time. Future was capitalizing on his sound. Drake was having like some new angles to particularly kind of get towards folks like that. Kendrick was blossoming around this time. There's just a lot of bountiful type things. XXX Temptation was pretty large in 2017 as well. So there's like some good stuff. Juice, I not gonna say Juice World, but he was more 2018. But just within the pitch behind it, there's a lot of differential type stuff that was kind of happening as like internet rap was starting to become more straightforward to the point where it's not just like mixtape rap and pitches like that, but actually like the concept where it was transgressing the albums and some of those type fairs that just becoming more amongst like the culture and just like standard atmosphere. So lots of good trendiness about this product was one that helped shift some things as far as that particular kind of went. I feel like as 2010s trap started to become amalgamated a lot more, like Future helped solidify that with albums like Evil and Dirty Sprite 2 and What a Time to Be Alive. Drake kind of helped with that with his albums like Views and if you're reading this, it's too late. Some of those type pitches. Yo Gotti was kind of helping out with that. Some of those type folks. But I look after this was one. This is pretty much like a streaming era classic. Just to be able to say that this album is going to get a classic score. Just the impact of it was that vicious. I realized that it has a minor degree of a learning curve. This is very Atlanta sound. This was to say within the pitch. Not like that's a problem whatsoever. I continue to be drenched in plenty of Atlanta sounds that I know the basic damn of the culture front to back, I'd have to say. But I look after it like this particular project has a relative learning curve about it, just being able to say there's just lots of kind of concepts about it. Losing my train of thought as to what I was trying to say here, but yeah, this album just did a lot for what was particularly kind of going along around this time. And this is, yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like a new era classic, just to be able to say that. Like when I think of like the Spotify era from about 20 late 2014, mid 2015 forward, just albums. Like you think of Kendrick Lamar's Damn, Black Panther soundtrack, like Future's Dirty Sprite 2, XXX Temptation projects when he was alive, Juice World's Goodbye and Good Riddance, some of those type ones, some of those particular type products. J. Cole's like 2016 album, I forget what that album's called, For Your Eyes Only, some of those type ones. I feel like this is definitely a streaming era classic that just did a lot, and it stands to say the impact of this album is pretty high. Now I want to say this album went at least platinum, which is kind of undercooked as far as those pitches kind of happen in nowadays times, but this definitely has more impact than is what's commonly talked about. I think the impact of this particular album, when most of the times nowadays is difficult to find like 5-star, very quality 10 out of 10 albums from like past about 2013, 2010, just pictures like that. In some cases, even 2006 or so. I'd have to say just within the concept behind it, but this is definitely one that is a notable one. I think I want to say that probably in like the 2010s list in terms of like some of the best of the 2010s, this is definitely one of those ones out of it, I'd have to say. But then just the concept, this probably stands to a lot of reason that this just has an overall lot of impact that just I don't think it gets like its accolades as full blown as it probably needs to. This is something that definitely had folks being on their cell phones more, had them being on Instagram more, had them being on Twitter more, pitches like that, just kind of the more social media type stuff, and just kind of pizzazz life of just being flashy and glitzy just within the tone, where more folks are starting to become like celebrities just through YouTube and places like that. YouTube, Instagram, some of these type places, Snapchat, some of those type things. It's just kind of the concept that Migos kind of was, they helped siphon some of that just to kind of have everyone wanting to kind of have that pizzazz and some of those type tones. Now, obviously, there were other albums that kind of did that, but this is one of the ones that kind of was really a product of like social media blossoming. I look after it. So yeah, there were 3 singles off this product, and one of which hit number 1. which was another thing that helped kind of solidify here was just the phrase bougie. Now, bougie was the phrase that had been used prior, obviously, but it's just kind of concept that is one that helped commercialize it to the point where I almost want to say that bougie might be in the dictionary or something like that. Kind of like how bootylicious and Stan Eminem's words Stan and then bootylicious from Destiny's Child were kind of solidified in the dictionary. This is one that kind of got there within the relative phrase of it. So Bad and Bougie is the song, like I was saying, that hit #1. Do recommend this song. So this album's going to get a 10 out of 10. I recommend every song out of the 13 songs on this project except for one of them on there, and I'll get to that. But Bad and Bougie is like a classic kind of late 2010s new era trap tune to kind of get here. Very impactful and stretching kind of influence about this particular song. This is just an IG and Instagram highlight to kind of get here. So look after this very much right down towards it. This very impactful type song. This should take you right back to 2017, 2016, late 2010 as far as those pitches kind of happen. Definitely one of the more impactful ones kind of get around that time. Now some of this is kind of one of those ones that seems drenched in mumble rap. So it's just kind of the concept. Nowadays, I feel like mumble rap is kind of phased out just within the coining phrase of that being called that. Nowadays, I would see it more as being called 2010s trap, but this is kind of the concept that this is, this is a product of back when there was more kind of diciness about like new era trap music and 2010s music past like 2013 2014 or so, where the product of some of these type ones kind of had like more divisive type things, where you did have blossoming trap artists like Lil Baby, Migos, and Moneybagg Yo, and some of those type folks. Other type ones, I can't really think of them as full blown Gunna and Young Thug and some of those type folks. There's plenty of those type folks, but this is a very vanilla song nowadays. I mean, this was definitely a signature. This probably might be one of the more signature songs at a late 2010s trap music as far as the pitch is the most commercial behind it. But I look after it did have a lot of appeal and did a lot for, like, once again, establishing more IG life type gloss in this overall kind of Snapchat era pitches like that. I'd say good, excellent kind of drench type beat just to be able to get just within the tone of like some real kind of pizzazz about it. Great song to smoke to and get some. Great song to smoke to pitches like that. T-shirt's a pretty nice one as well. This is like a very dreary, kind of high as hell club outing fun to kind of get here. This just is like a feeling hella good kind of social ambience about this particular song. It's just some trendy kind of night glamour to kind of get here. This one just really feels like you're feeling it. Just the concept of just getting towards it, smoking hella backwoods pitches like that, just enjoying some joints, just some good pitches as far as that particular kind of goes. Do you like the overall appeal of this? This is a little bit more jarred compared to Bad and Bougie, but both of these songs feel pretty pounding just with an aspect behind it. It's really drenched and just getting tore up just in the pitch behind it. Now, I don't remember the chart appeal of T-shirt, but I do want to say it got pretty high. It got to number 19 on the Billboard 100. So that's pretty excellent. That's pretty excellent to kind of get. So it's basically they had several hit singles off this album. Did pretty good damage as far as those pitches going to happen. That's a nice one. So dreary T-shirts are nice dreary. T-shirts a nice dreary one to smoke up to. Slippery's a nice one. This has Gucci Mane on there, and Gucci Mane was one of the influences of Migos back in the day. It's a good pitch to get them finally on a song after Gucci Mane had been in prison since like since mid late 2013, and they never really got the chance. I mean, Migos came up more in like early 2014. They did songs prior to that, but it was just kind of the concept that the basic almost 4-year prison, the 3-year prison sentence that Gucci Mane kind of had, just Migos come up with just without Gucci Mane. So it's a good concept to get that, but this is like an oozing and heavy vehicle knock. I'd have to say good concept. This is like some ride around, definitely good ride around type music to kind of get here. Further stock and kind of trendy. This is like some further stock kind of trendy type music to kind of get in the set culture into. Some of these songs kind of set the culture into like a movement as far as those pitches kind of happen. This more snazzy type pizzazness, just be able to get into pitches like that, just really having like the glitz and appeal as far as that glamour kind of went. Now, obviously, there were albums from like the early 2010s, pitches like that, but it was just a little bit more trap centric. Just I feel like the commercial aspect of it, like the Snapchat era and the Instagram era and the Twitter era, just had more atmospheres of just like more standard typeness as internet rap started to get a little bit more bound just with an aspect behind it where it wasn't just kind of had more gloss and pizzazz about it, but it's definitely some nice glitzy typeness. This is a real nice thumper to kind of get here. This Slippery just has a great pickup for like sound systems for like vehicles with heavy stunt just pitches like that. It's real nice one to get some knock. I mean, this can kind of be a club song, but it definitely feels like a good one to cruise around to and just enjoy like thump. This is definitely one of those type ones. Like when you think Bad and Bougie definitely did that, and Future had some songs like that. Trying to think of some of those ones like Jumpman, some of those type pitches. But yeah, the only song I don't recommend off this album is Big on Big, which basically Big on Big was just kind of an awkward placement of one. I mean, it has similar type productions to like songs like Big on Big just didn't have the same appeal as Brown Paper Bag or some of these other type songs on here. It was basically more of like a just more homely type one, just more insular type sense, but it just didn't really nail the appeal as much full blown. I'd have to say it was just kind of more awkward type one, or just the trajectory behind it was not quite as, I don't know, just kind of felt more, just didn't have as much pizzazz about it. But every other song on this project's pretty vicious and high grade, I'd have to say, just within the concept. So this album gets a 10 out of 10. So basically some ones on here like What the Price. So What the Price is a very quality type one to get here. Is like a dreary and kind of highlighted trap malaise about this particular one. Very dark hypnotic beat to kind of get. Really like the piano beat on this particular one. Just reminds us of like 3 6 Mafia with like some 2010s trap. This is like a vanilla kind of 2010s trap outing. Just it's definitely like some vanilla kind of 2010s trap to kind of get here within the pitch behind it. And this is like some good outing fun to kind of have. Just within the concept, this one works pretty well with like Slippery, works pretty well with like Bad and Bougie, just a little bit more woozy type one. Not quite as much of like turn up in like a vicious sense, but I would definitely have to say this within the tone behind it has a lot of it's a lot of good aspects about it. This one probably has a little bit more immediate appeal. I'd have to say this is probably one. I would say this song has less of a learning curve. I mean, most of these songs have that auto-tune pitch on here within the tone. So just kind of, if there are folks out there that really have like a distaste for auto-tunes, just kind of within the pitch, that the aspects behind this very similar to like Future, very similar to Future, very similar to Travis Scott from like his mid 2010s days. His pitches like that. It's this kind of concept. I mean, this is, just within the conduct of how this really began to stretch out and just become like normal, kind of become normal and mainstream, where I almost feel like nowadays, because of albums like this, that the word trap is just almost like a genre, more less of like a subgenre. Like rap music is a genre, trap would be a subgenre, but in some cases, with probably there being like hundreds of trap albums that come out a year, trap would almost damn near be a subgenre. And this is some pitches behind that. Just very tons of hundreds of albums similar to this particular product, but What the Price, a real nice one. Deads with 2 Chainz, the pretty excellent type ones, like a dredgy kind of evening ride out, I would have to say about this one. Feel good, kind of revved up, money get type song to kind of have here. A good pitch for that. It's like a primer for like a crazy night. I would definitely feel like here this is a good song to situate and cheese a bit just within the pitch. And by cheese, I mean smile pitches like that, just within the concept. Real good revving type one that just has some excitement about it. Just real feel nice, just enjoy some of the ambience about it. So I'd say there are a series of ladies songs on here as well. This actually is a pretty relatively commercial. This is a pretty commercial type product for like some ladies pop type songs, kind of getting like a trap sense. That does a good job. The thing is, this is like Future's Pluto, just within the concept, just minus like being watered down. So it's just a good pitch to kind of have some of these type ones for just more pop trap type tunes, kind of get for some commercial bite. All Ass is one of those type ones. It's like a basic kind of cooling cut, I'd have to say, while out and about. Definitely, it's like a more vanilla kind of venue noise when marinating. Just pitches like that, I'd have to say, and it's like a stock night of enjoy to kind of get here. A real nice one. This is a little bit more of like a strip club type song. It's really like the overall wooziness of this particular one. It really has some good aspects about it. Not quite as feral as Bad and Bougie or Slippery or What the Price or some of those type ones, but it is a good aspect to kind of get it. Another one that's like that for like some IG life and just overall strip club type tunes, but this one's a little bit more localized. Good ladies pop, just a little bit more around the house, just kind of more insular. I'd have to say is Get Right, which is like a sparkly and days kind of local turn up. I'd have to say goes pretty well with Slippery. I'd have to say, but it's just a little bit more inward. This is like a housebound kind of version, like the song All Out. Get Right, which is like a more housebound kind of song, like the song All Ass. I'd have to say, yeah, Get Right, which is also a song that goes pretty well with Slippery. I'd say has similar fashions to that particular beat. Not quite as heavy vehicle knock, I'd say, but it is a nice one, just more local bound. Then Brown Paper Bags, another similar one to Get Right with You and All Acid. I'd say it's like a woozy kind of glittery IG life song. Some IG life kind of pizzazz, I'd have to say. It's like a ladies vibe, definitely. And it's like a trap kind of R&B club product to kind of get here. So it's a little bit more outward than Get Right with You, but still a good concept for some of these type ones. Just some beesies aside, some pitches like that, just standard chit chat type tone, basic stock ambience to kind of get here, and it's like a stock kind of glitzy night just to be able to have. So it's just within the concept behind it. I mean, this is definitely a lot more flashy. When I look after the bite of this product and you think of like all the viciousness that's happened since 2017, but this is a lot more state of the art, basically within the pizzazz of how much flashy that some of this type was to kind of get with more Instagram and Snapchat type pizzazz about it. Back in early 2017, late 2016, just had a lot more pizzazz about the trendiness behind it. But it's definitely impactful. The only reason why I would show its age is just based upon the concept of just that. Obviously, there have been albums that have outdone it in terms of like the trendiness, but in terms of like the impact that it had, this is definitely one of the the cogwheels that initially kind of did some of these, at least within commercializing it. Kelly Price is a nice one. It's like a syrupy, kind of drenched out in haze, kind of trap buzz song to kind of get here. Definite kind of night venue hitter, I'd have to say, and it's like an ambient song to smoke some good. Kelly Price is like another one that really feels like a glissed out type one. When I was saying this is a good song to smoke to, yeah, this works just T-shirt and Bad and Bougie, some of those type ones that really be high as hell as far as pitches like that kind of happen. It's real nice hazy type one. Pretty good buzz song as well. It says Travis Scott on there, so it is a trap type tune, kind of get within some of that type fare. Just pretty good stunt song just within the sense, but also the concept of just being like some good club noise just for the pitch behind it. Just good social outs, just very good 1-2-3 punch with Bad and Bougie and T-shirt, I'd have to say. And then Out Your Way is a nice one. This is another good song for the ladies as far as pitches like that kind of happen. This one Kickback. This one's a little bit more homely type bound. Very commercial and makeshift. It's like a commercial kind of trap pop makeshift tune to kind of get here. Trendy and trailblaze tune for like accommodating Instagram live pitches like that. And this just has an everyday type feel. Something that just kind of feels like the sort of stuff that Future was doing with his Pluto album from 2012, but just more to like the late 2010s, I'd have to say. Basically like a trap makeshift type song, which wasn't as full-blown kind of happening. Some of these type ones, folks were kind of doing that. Travis Scott was doing that with his late 2010s albums, pitches like that. Migos was definitely getting towards it. Just very capital type one. Didn't do it a ton on here. This is a very compact album just within the pitch. I'm surprised it didn't have like 18, 19 songs on here, but it's just kind of the pitch that all these songs had all these songs had their aspect about being able to nail it. I'd say if Big on Big probably would have been better impact. I would say if Big on Big would have had better execution, it probably could have been a song like Out Your Way. I think that's what it was attempting, is to be more kind of commercial makeshift like Out Your Way kind of was, but this one just nailed it better. A little bit more pizzazz. This had the appeal. And a lot of these songs have like a very frosty aspect about them. This is very much a winter album. There's some songs on here like I definitely feel like Culture, the title track, Out Your Way is like that. There's some songs on here like, there's some other songs on here like, I kind of feel like All Ass is kind of like that. Call Casting's kind of like that. Some of these type ones. There's a number of songs that have like some winter bite on here, I'd have to say in particular. Get Right, which is probably like that as well. So kind of happens to be a thing. Speaking of Culture, the title track, this is a nice one as well. It says DJ Khaled on the intro, pitch like that. It's like a frosty kind of trap ride around, I'd feel like here. More commercial, local buzz noise kind of get. Good concept for like some errands pitches like that while flexing. Good stunt song kind of have just an aspect like it. The song is basically like a mini kind of Bad and Bougie, I'd say, just an aspect. Not quite as heavy centric as that particular one, but definitely a good neighboring type one. Good mini cousin of that to be able to get within that tone. Yeah, and I would say they Get Right, which is some wintry type fare just with an excellence up behind it. But yeah, Culture's a real nice one, real frosty. Culture, the title track's a real nice one, real nice frosty ride around, I'd have to say. And then I don't think I've talked about Call Casting. I think this is the last one I haven't talked about full blown just yet. Call Casting is basically like a vintage kind of mixtape Beethoven, similar trap house noise kind of get here. Basic kind of winter breeze about this particular one. Just winter breeze tasks and calm me as far as those pitches kind of happen. Yeah, Call Casting is just a pretty good in-between type song to be able to get just into the aspects behind it. Basically kind of commercializes Beethoven's type sound a lot more. I mean, Gucci Mane kind of did this more, but he did not do as many full-blown kind of frequent. Gucci Mane did not do as many full-blown collaborations with Beethoven once he started to commercialize. I mean, he was always on like his mixtapes and stuff like that, but in terms of like something that could be something a little bit more radio ready just in the pitches, it's kind of more within the tone behind it. But I look after it. This has some good winter brush just within the tone behind it. Really like the pitch behind it. It's basic kind of everyday type fare. So yeah, this does a lot for establishing like Atlanta sound just within the pitch, because it really does feel, you can listen to this album and feel like you're just amongst like the Atlanta culture if you listen to it way out in Detroit or way out in like St. Louis and pitches like that, way out in like Denver, some of those type places, way out in Houston, Texas, just pitches like that. You just would have the tone is behind seeing like more workaday type fare. I mean, there's obviously other albums that kind of do that within the aspect, but this is one that kind of brings like the culture and kind of switches it to like the tones of just saying, well, this is kind of some localized type stuff just within the nature behind it. So it feels local just within the pitch, despite the fact that it's actually kind of social just within it. It just basically feels like taking a taste of Atlanta with you within those particular tones. This has those products as far as those pitch can happen, just with the more kind of sound of just like what was kind of going around. So it's a pretty good aspect for that. But yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. Social Score, I'll go ahead and give. It's kind of tricky. I think I'll give the Social Score like a 10 out of 10 just because of the aspect behind it. I look after this within the tone of how some of these particular kind of happen. I feel like the glitz about this particular album is pretty high, I'd have to say. It's the overall social type appeal. There's songs like Bad and Bougie, T-shirt, Deads, and like Kelly Price and some of these type ones that are great for smoking, just out and about. Some of the heavy, more pounding type ones. It kind of switches in between like the more standard knock or just like club type tunes for more vintage kind of turn up, just within the aspect circuit of like the late 2010s. But it also has like plenty of good ladies songs just within the pitch of flirting with like some IG models pitches like that, or just standard more honey dips that are just more contemporary, just within the tone behind it. Just has a lot of good aspects just behind being able to do it. Just real good pitch for some of these. Do you feel like there's songs like Get Right With Ya, Brown Paper Bag, All Ass, some of these type ones, Out Your Way, that just particularly have that tone? So there's at least four of these. And I'd probably have to say like some songs like Culture and like Call Casting. They're just more localized type ones for like some Winter Brush as far as that particular one goes. So it has the good aspects just behind being able to nail some of these. It's real good aspects. So social enough to be able to say very iconic for like late 2010s, just the impact of Snapchat, Instagram Live, some of those type tones. It's real nice, flashy pizzazz. I mean, once again, it's probably been outstripped in terms of recent times, but I think it still holds its own in terms of like the might that it continued to have concern what it did. So that's this kind of thing. In terms of the future, that's difficult because Takeoff is deceased and has been for a couple of years now, just within the impact behind it. But they did at least Quavo and Takeoff dropped one last project, and like Quavo and Takeoff dropped a group project in late 2022. So that's the most recent thing that at least most of the Migos kind of did. Offset at least has dropped an album recently. I want to say Quavo has dropped an album recently within the tone, at least 2023, some pitches like that, or Offset might have even dropped in 2024. They've had some projects as some of that type fare. There are plenty of other Migos projects to get to. I definitely want to get to some more of these mixtapes, some of that type fare. There's plenty more that I'm going to wind up with, but it's just kind of the concept of just being able to say this is an impactful one, definitely a new era classic.